Hello everyone and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and again I'm broadcasting to you live from beautiful Budapest, Hungary in Central Europe here. All right, so just real quickly, our materials as usual, our members know this, come from our websites at aehelp.com for academic IELTS, and for general IELTS the materials are coming from gieltshelp.com. So join us there to get lots and lots of help to improve on all sections of the IELTS and pass or get nice high band scores the next time you sit the test. Hi Jeffrey, I'm doing great, thank you. I have a nice original lesson for you today. We are going to be looking at a comparing maps type of question. And again, this is a members chat class. For those of you who are members, you know what that means. You get access to our 6 original practice exams, and you can request classes. Also, we have an app. You can download Academic IELTS Help from your Google Play Store. Send your homework questions to Adrian, that's my name, at aehelp.com. That's my company email, so that's ADRIAN at aehelp.com. That's where you can get a hold of me. All right, so writing and editing help is available on our websites, and the schedule that's coming up is today, the 13th, comparing some maps, task 1. Then continuing on with writing task 2 in our course sessions. Hi Arcana, good to see you in class as well. Then we have another members chat only, and then finishing off the week with another course session. All right, so let's have a peek at our question for today. I have to kind of test out the brightness here. So just give me a moment. I think that should work. All right. So this is the question that we will be looking at. I can increase the font size here so you can see the question a little bit more clearly. And just give me a moment. Let's make it 16 should be good. There we go. All right. So this is our writing task. It was requested by one of our members, I think last week. So took a bit of work and design, but we'll be using it for other parts of our course as well. So let's read this together. Writing task 1. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The maps below show the town of Summerville in 1960 and 2010. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting comparisons and main features where relevant. Write at least 150 words, okay? So that's the question, and then, of course, we need to look at the graphic here. So here is Summerville in 1960. You can see some key elements here. And then here is the same town, Summersville, in 2010, okay? What's the first step, members? So Arcana, Jeffrey, what should I do? What's my first step here to write a good response for this comparing maps task 1? Okay, and let me know if something's not clear. It's important that it's all clear here. So what's my first step? What do I do first? Well, I can start by paraphrasing the task 1 question. And that can also start off my okay, so that can also start off my overview. Okay. So, yeah, and then after that we can look for features, and then we'll mark it by numbers. And there's actually a very special way to do that, Jeffrey, for comparing maps. So we'll get there in a second. So for the overview, for the beginning, I can kind of paraphrase what I see, right? So these two maps. Okay, so notice how the question says the maps below, and then here I've added a little bit more description. I'm saying these two maps. So instead of just saying the maps, I say these two maps. Below show the town of Summerville. Depict the settlement Okay, so these two maps depict the settlement of Summerville. So sure, I'm paraphrasing here and giving detail, right? That's always what I want to do first. So the maps below show the town of Summerville. The two maps depict the settlement of Summerville. Notice how I didn't say below. That's because I don't want to indicate location on a piece of paper. But I do want to give more details that it's two maps, and I do want to paraphrase town for settlement, okay, of Summerville in 1960 and 2010. How can I paraphrase this to make it a little bit nicer? Arcana, Jeffrey, what do you think? What's a nice way to paraphrase this in 1960 and 2010 to make it a little bit nicer? Or how can I give it more detail? So in 1960, and might want to do a little bit of math here. I hope that you're kind of getting the same idea as me. So when you see simple numbers like this, especially with these two maps, one is in 1960 and 2010, how much later is the 2010 map? Okay, how much later is that 2010 map? Yeah, so Naveen, nice to see you in class. Yeah, 50 years later. What's another way to say 50 years? That's right, Jeffrey, half a century. And by doing that, your band score is going up, up, and up. So you've noticed the 50 years. You know you can say it as a half century. You're climbing and climbing up that IELTS band score ladder. So these two maps depict the settlement of Summerville in 1960 and half a century later in 2010. All right, so this sentence and this sentence are fairly equal. They're pretty much the same, except notice that I'm giving more details. I'm paraphrasing. So I'm not just repeating what the exam is giving me. You don't get points for that. But I'm showing the examiner and the reader that I understand what's going on here, and I'm focusing on the details. Great. Good for you. All right, so now we can do what you suggested. Jeffrey, where we can indicate some points of comparison for our overview and our, let me try to get both maps on there, for our overview and our analysis, okay? So I realize the two maps are small and you're not seeing the full top there, which is absolutely okay. When you're looking at these two maps, what do you notice? So what are kind of the biggest differences that you notice between 2010 and then Summerville 1960? So what's right away the most notable difference in the 50 years? Okay? How can you summarize the most notable difference? First question you should ask, okay, and again, remember, this is coming from yesterday's class. You want to think of your audience as an alien. So your reader is like an alien. They don't know what you know. So first thing that I'm asking here is, has this place changed? So has Summerville changed from here to here? Okay, so Jeffrey says there's more roads. Absolutely. So that's a big difference, right? More roads, and you can do that visually. You can see there's a road here that does not exist here. You can see that there's a road here that does not exist here. Okay, you can see, let's see, any other roads? Yeah, you can see a road here that does not exist here. Okay. So that's definitely 1 point. Absolutely. Naveen says that there's a boat here on Crystal Lake. We'll look at the map a little bit closer as well, but you're right. There is a boat there. Do you see any other big differences? There we go. So Jeffrey says, hey, wait a second. There's more houses, okay? And notice something interesting. You have the animals here in 1960, and you have the animals here in 2010, okay? You have lots of houses here and here, okay? But you don't have those houses here or here. So when you're comparing maps, one of the really interesting strategies that you can use is actually quite visual. If you're comparing these differences, the bigger circles should be your more important features or points. So the roads are very big circles. They can be point number 1. The houses are very big circles. They can be point number 2. And the animals moving from this location to this location, so we can assume the farming has moved, can be absolutely point number 3, okay? So roads, let me put it here like this. Roads, houses, farms. Okay, those are some big changes right away. The roads, the houses, the farms. Sure. And then Naveen said that, hey, wait a second, there's something that looks like a boat on the lake there and a dock. That's a smaller one. So that's a smaller change, right? So in 2010, there's a dock, there's boats on the map. Okay, let me erase this so you can get a little bit of a better view. What else do you see? So members, what else do you see? So you see those big changes. There's a couple other smaller changes. Anybody see some of those smaller changes that have happened? What are some smaller changes? One is the boat, and then you don't have to look far. You'll see this when I enlarge these maps a little bit, is the school. Okay, so there's dock, and there's a school as well that's been added. Notice that there's absolutely no school here, okay? So, but there is a school down here. You'll see that when I make the map a little bit bigger. All right, now here's the river. Pay attention to that. So the river's going this way in both maps. It's called Burns River. Here we see a bridge. There's an original bridge there as well. But here, of course, these new roads require new bridges. So you can see that there's a bridge here and another bridge here that goes over the river. So there's 2 additional bridges, okay? Now, I might want to reorganize these. I might want to put the bridge before the dock and even the school before the dock and make the dock last. So I would probably go 4, 5, and then 6 for the dock. The 4th would be the bridge, or 2 bridges. Okay? And that's lots. Okay, that's lots. The lake is the same size. It's just that here you're getting a bit of it cut off, but that's okay. All right, so we have these 6 points. 6 points is enough. And of course, we have the compass here showing north and west and east. And then what's the biggest change? The biggest change, again, and this is where you want to think of your reader as an alien, is that the entire town itself has developed. So we can assume that more houses and a school and a dock means that there's a greater population. There's more people living in Summerville in 2010. It's definitely more developed. The train station stays the same here as well, okay? If you have a lot of time, you can mention that. The post office stays in the same situation as well. So those can be similarities. But it's important to note that overall the town is growing and developing. Maybe that's the reason for moving the farm fields from the south eastern to the northwestern part of the town, okay? So Jeffrey's saying more facilities. Absolutely, there's a school, all right? So we've identified the points, now we can write. So let's go back to the essay here. Oops, sorry. Okay, so going back to our overview, the main point that we can see here is that the town has developed, okay? So the Summerville has grown and developed in these 50 years. And we can say that at a first glance, this is what's happening. Okay, so at first glance, it is clear that Summerville develops as a town in these 50 years. There are more roads and people living there after the new millennium. Okay, so there's your overview. It's 3 sentences, or 2 sentences, 2 to 3 sentences, and just explain the clear difference between the 2 towns. Now, you might get maps comparing 2 cities or 2 towns that don't grow in the years, but decrease in size as well. That can happen, okay? So here, we can see that the 2 maps depict the settlement of Summerville in 1960 and half a century later in 2010. At first glance, it is clear that Summerville develops as a town in these 50 years. There are more roads and people living there after the new millennium. Okay, so some nice paraphrasing, good use of language, and you're on your way to a good IELTS band score. All right, so now I'm ready to start my analysis. Or analyses, we can say, for plural. So here, my first sentence is my point number 1, and I'm describing the roads here. Okay, so members, write that sentence about the road. Okay, so have a look. Here is Summerville in 1960. It has 1 main road, and then there are 2 roads spanning off in the northeastern and the southwestern region of the town. Okay, so these roads, compare that to 2010, and when you have 2 maps, that's really all you're doing is you're comparing the 2 maps. You don't need to write about them individually because it's clear when you make the comparisons what each map looks like during that time period. So here you have additional roads here, here, and here. So write a sentence or a couple sentences that compares and contrasts these roads. Okay, I'll give you a chance. I don't want to just keep throwing you these fish because then it will seem real easy, but practice is important. So Naveen, Jeffrey, and if we have any of our other members watching, just not commenting, then please, please, please write a sentence that compares and contrasts these roads to see how well you do. Okay, here's your chance. Now, just a few hints. Roads stretch. Roads run in a certain direction. Extend, stretch, or run. Those are some good words to know. I'll write those up here while you're thinking. Okay. And Naveen, your previous comment there with the extension of a road in the west could be used in one of these example sentences. All right. While you're thinking about that and typing, I'll do the same. So in 1960, the town had one main road with two small roads running east to west and west to east in the north and south, respectively. However, 5 decades later, another way to say 50, okay, let's see what you have so far. So Naveen says, in 1960, the main road of Summerville runs through northeastern and southwestern parts of the town. Later, the main road is further divided into more parts. It's okay, Naveen. I can bring the diagram back for you. So this is what it looks like here. You say that the main road runs through northeast and southwestern parts of the town. Northeast would be here and southwest would be here. These are not main roads. These are smaller roads. This is the main road here. So this is not one road, okay? This is not one road. You can see that this is a road, this is a road, and this is a road. So your information would be incorrect. It's inaccurate, okay? The main road runs from north to south or south to north. And then this road runs from west to east, and this road runs from east to west. Okay, so it goes from here to here, doesn't continue here, and this one goes this way and does not continue here. So be really careful with the way that you describe the information, because even if you're writing good grammar, good sentences, if the information is not accurate or not correct, the examiner will not give you marks. In fact, your marks will go down. Okay, so be very, very careful. There's one main road here with a bridge, and then 2 side roads that extend from the main road. Okay, all of that vocabulary, that explanation I just used, is useful in your writing. So I can't write it all down, but listen back for that. Okay. So Jeffrey says, with a closer look, a road on the west side of Sam's Bridge, which crosses the river. Meanwhile, another huge road stretched from the very northeast of town, then run all the way down Crystal Lake. Again, Jeffrey, and I know this is why I decided to do one of these examples, because it's tough. It's tough to use the right language. Again, Jeffrey, that's quite confusing and awkward and misleading, what you've written in a couple of parts there. So one more time. In 1960, there's one main road that crosses over Burns River. There are 2 smaller roads, one that runs from west to east in the northeastern part of town, and another small road in the southwestern part of town that runs from east to west. Okay? The main road in the southern region is adjacent to Crystal Lake. All right? So careful with your use of prepositions and descriptive words. It's really tricky to send people the wrong way. All right? Or to incorrectly describe what you're actually seeing. All right, now, if we look at Summersville 2010, we can see the addition of 2 other main roads and one more small road, right? So it's this and this that we want to talk about first, and then we want to talk about this road. Now notice that this road also joins this road here, okay? And this road runs through this part of the town here. So we can describe that. So work on describing this part, okay? Naveen, Jeffrey, don't give up, okay? You're doing a good job. This is what we're working on next. I'll keep coming back to it. write your description for this one, all right? So write that comparison. These comparing maps type of questions seem to be fairly popular these days, so you definitely want to practice this, okay? So, however, 5 decades later, let me see if I can make this background a little bit darker while you guys are working out that contrast. Try to increase my darkness here. There we go. Okay, so that should be a little bit better, more clear for you. All right. So, however, 5 decades later, what happens? There are 2 additional roads running from south to north on the east and west side of town, okay? If you don't have the names of those roads, then, okay, that's a good question. So Naveen's saying, what else can I say instead of roads? You can say streets. Okay, streets and roads are pretty much synonyms, just like alleys and avenues. There's slight differences and the definitions are sometimes argued, but alleys and avenues you can use as synonyms in my opinion, and you're fine. And streets and roads you can use as synonyms, okay? Small roads, Naveen, avenues, alleys. And then dead-end roads, so roads where you drive in and it's just some houses and then you have to turn around and drive back. Those are cul-de-sacs. Okay, those are called cul-de-sacs. All right. So keep writing your sentence. 5 decades later, there are 2 additional streets running from south to north on the east and west side of town. Both these main roads cross Burns River. As well, there is another small avenue which connects the original main road to the school and lake. Okay, so that would be that little road there. All right, so this is the second map that we're looking at. So that would be this little road here. Okay, and I've darkened up the background there, so I hope you can still see it more or less clearly. Okay, so this little road here connects the school, right? And then this one here connects the eastern parts of town, and this one here connects the western parts of town. All right, we don't need to go into more details. We don't need to talk more about the roads. We can talk about the second big point, which is the houses. Okay, so think about the houses. Hopefully you've given me some sentences for the roads. Yeah, you could say that, Jeffrey. I would start with, in order to connect the 2 sides of the river in the east and west, 2 more northbound roads were added. Okay, so this is an alternative, Jeffrey. I'll write it up here. In order to better connect. And that's not an opinion, that's fact, because we can see that. In order to better connect the 2 sides of the river, 2 additional north and south bound streets are added in 2010. So that would be an alternative sentence, okay? That's a repeat of what I've already put here, so I wouldn't want to put both, but it's definitely a good sentence. Okay, so Naveen, you're going for the next point. You're saying, in addition, the number of residents has grown in the latter picture, okay? But don't refer to the picture, Naveen. Just refer to the town in 2010, okay? So, absolutely, okay? Furthermore, and it's different than in addition, okay? In addition means that this is important and this is important. Roads are important, but even more important are the people that live in Summerville. So it sounds better to say furthermore than in addition. Furthermore is like, and even better, okay? So furthermore, the houses, the extra houses seen in 2010 indicate that the number of residents has grown over the years. Okay? Has grown from 1960 is better to say because we don't know the years. Has grown since the 60s. Okay. Good. That's a good way to start it off. So furthermore, the extra houses seen in 2010 indicate that the number of residents has grown since the 60s, okay? This has grown, Naveen, is very important for your IELTS band score because it's present perfect. And present perfect is a really good grammar form to use for this sentence since we're emphasizing the change, okay? We're really highlighting the change that's happened from the 60s until 2010. It's a significant change, and we expect that to continue. So you have to use that present perfect. So not were grown, Naveen. It's not passive voice here. It's got to be has grown, okay? Present perfect. Very important. Let me get you back on screen and then think about, is this enough? So is this enough for this feature? So we've described the number of residents growing clearly. That's one of the big differences. Is that enough? Have we said enough about that? I would say no, all right? You want to say some more. What else can you say? So when we look at these maps, what else can you say about the increasing number of residents? So here is our 1960 map, okay? So where do we see the residents? Well, we see the residents are absolutely centralized here in the southwestern region or quadrant of the village, right? So here, the settlement is here. And if we look at our second map, we can realize that, hey, wait a second, there's settlements here. We can see some houses here, and we can see some houses up here as well. So in 1960, all we're seeing are some houses down in this area, but then by 2010, we're seeing houses here and here with the addition of a school. Now, more importantly, we can also see that where the farm animals used to be, the farm animals are here now. Well, what was here before? I don't know. Let's have a look. It's trees. Okay, of course, development. We cut down trees, move the farm where the farm used to be. We move in some houses, right? So we want to describe that. We want to describe that clearly, how there's been a change in the location of certain different aspects of this town. So Naveen says, the majority of residents has shifted from the east to the western part. I don't know if they've shifted. There's still just as many houses there, Naveen, so careful to not misrepresent what's happening. This is the map from 1960s. We have 4 houses here, and the map in 2010, we still have 4 houses here. We have 2 here and 2 here. So the highest concentration of residents is still apparently here. So that hasn't necessarily shifted, it's just expanded, okay? So we can go back and we can talk about that a little bit more, all right? Continuing on, so furthermore, the extra houses seen in 2010 indicate that the number of residents has grown since the 1960s. Originally, homes can be seen in the southwestern region of the town. However, or since we've used however, let's use something different. Conversely, by 2010, there are residents living in the southeast and northeast regions. Where, and if I want to go more detailed here, I can say where grazing where animals and trees were found in the past. Okay, so what I can do here is I can go to my next point of relocating the farm. That's what I'm pushing towards, right? All right. Yeah, that's right, Jeffrey. That's exactly it. So more residents can be seen in the northeast and southeast part of town. And you're right by combining that into one word. When something's one word, it should be one word, like southwestern or northeast, southeast, okay? Those are one word in English. So good on you, Jeffrey, for catching that. All right? So conversely, by 2010, there are residents living in the southeast and northeast regions where animals and trees were found in the past. The animal grazing has been relocated to the northwestern part of Summerville, of Summerville, where Sherwood Forest or something like that. I can't remember the name of the forest. Greenwood, there we go. Where Greenwood Forest used to extend, okay? All right. So far, so good. All right. So we've talked about the main points now. Now we can talk about the smaller points. All right. So we've talked about the main points of the roads, the residents, the farm being relocated, and now we can talk about the smaller points of the dock, the school, and the bridges, okay? So we can talk about those smaller points. Now, if we're running out of time, and we probably already have close to 150 words, if we don't have 150 words already, then we can summarize those smaller points easily and quickly into a simple sentence, all right? So here we go. Some of the other observable or notable changes in the 50 years is the construction of a dock and school in the southeast, as well as the addition of 3 bridges to cross Burns River. Okay, so we can really quickly wrap it up like that for those smaller points. All right, now we can go to the summary. But before I go to the summary, Jeffrey and Naveen, I want to go back and highlight some of the important points for this type of comparison, okay? So some important vocabulary that we're going to pull from this so you can study this at home. So in 1960, the town had 1 main road with 2 small roads running, okay? So make note of that word, running. Another way to say it is stretching or extending. Okay, so when you're discussing the direction of roads and where they go or where they come from, then extending, stretching, running east to west and west to east in the north and south respectively. Okay, however, 5 decades later, so notice the paraphrasing of time in the difference between the 2 time periods. So 50 years, half a century, 5 decades later. Using those synonyms will definitely help increase your overall band score. Okay, so here I might want to replace running with extending if I want to make it even better. There are 2 additional streets extending from south to north on the east and west side of town. Both these main roads cross Burns River. Okay, you cross a river. So another good verb there is cross Burns River. As well, there's another small avenue, okay, so a smaller street that terminates, you can call it an avenue, which connects the original main road to the school and lake. All right, now this is an alternate sentence that was suggested by a member. Furthermore, the extra houses seen in 2010 indicate the number of residents has grown, okay? When you indicate change over time, this is very common, of course, if you're comparing 2 maps of the same city in different time periods, you need to use this present perfect, okay? Present perfect is a very important piece of grammar for this kind of comparison, comparing 2 maps of the same location in different time periods. All right? Make sure to use words that show comparison and contrast. So words like conversely, however, okay? Use synonyms. Don't use the same words. So don't use however, however, however. Use however, conversely. On the other hand, in contrast, okay? If something has stayed the same, like the post office and the train station, then use similarly. Similarly, or the same as, in 1960, the post office and train station are found in their original locations. Okay? So use those words as well. So when you're comparing maps, know your verbs, know your prepositions, know the grammar tense of the present perfect that you need to include, and of course past tense as well. And make sure to organize the information in a logical manner. So notice here that we started with the biggest changes, the roads, the residents, the farms, and then we went into the more specific changes of the school and the dock. And then we can get into the least specific changes, which is no change at all. It's similarity, right? The same as 50 years prior, the post office and train station remain in their original locations. So if I'm a very fast writer and I've written this in 10, 11, 12 minutes, then I can throw in that little piece of detail of what stayed the same. But if I'm running out of time, I definitely want to just cut to a summary and then go to task 2. If I've run out of time, then I just want to stop here and go to task 2. Don't take time from task 2 and waste it on task 1, because task 2 is worth more, right? But if you do have time, then you can write a summary, and you can say, in summary, the development of Summerville in these 5 decades, or this half century, is clearly observed in the expansion of road infrastructure and more housing. Okay, as well as additional facilities. One of you members, I can't remember if it was you, Naveen, or Jeffrey, that said this is good to include. Okay, so that's the full essay there. That's the summary, okay? It's a nice paraphrase and compression of what we've said in the essay, and it makes sense, all right? It's clear for the reader. Let's read this. Let's look at the maps, make sure that we didn't completely go off mark. So here's Summerville in 1960. Again, remember, we circled those big observable changes in the beginning, the roads, the houses, the farm moving. So again here, right, the biggest circles are your number 1 points. Okay, so those are your number 1, number 2, number 3 points. We make those comparisons, and then the smaller ones of the school, the dock, and then the post office and train station remaining in the same location. Okay, so having seen that, practicing at home, I'm definitely reviewing this, and now I'm reading to make sure that it makes sense. So these 2 maps depict the settlement of Summersville in 1960 and half a century later in 2010. At first glance, it is clear that Summersville develops as a town in these 50 years. There are more roads and people living there after the new millennium. In 1960, the town had 1 main road with 2 small roads running east to west and west to east in the north and south respectively. However, 5 decades later, there are 2 additional streets stretching from south to north on the east and west sides of town. Both of these main roads cross Burns River. As well, there is another small avenue which connects the original main road to the school and lake. Furthermore, the extra houses seen in 2010 indicate that the number of residents has grown since the 60s. Originally, homes can be seen in the southwestern region of the town. Conversely, by 2010, there are residents living in the southeast and northeast regions where animals and trees were found in the past. The animal grazing has been relocated to the northwestern part of Summersville, where Greenwood Forest used to extend. Should be a big G because it's a name, big F because it's a name. Some of the other notable changes in the 50 years is the construction of a dock and school in the southeast, as well as the addition of 3 bridges to cross Burns River. The same as 50 years prior, the post office and train station remain in their original location. This should be 2 bridges because the 3rd bridge was already there. So clearly, no matter who you are, you can always identify improvements when you review your essay. Super important. In summary, the development of Summerville in these 5 decades is clearly observed in the expansion of road infrastructure and more housing, as well as additional facilities. Okay? That essay, especially with the corrections that I just named for you, will get you that really high Band 8, Band 9 mark, especially if it's clean, grammatic mistake-free, spelling mistake-free. Okay. Any question, members, about this particular writing task 1? So do you have any questions about this? Anything that's not clear here? Anything that wasn't clear? So for writing task 1, comparing maps, remember, you don't need to describe them individually on their own. You just need to compare them. Okay, they're usually 2 different time periods or they're neighboring towns. So you just need to compare them. Go step by step. Observe the main features first. They're going to be your biggest circles that are most obvious. All right, and make sure you're using your preposition and your grammar well. Jeffrey, I'm glad you learned a lot about writing about roads or communicating about roads, because communicating about roads is something that we do often when we're searching for directions, traveling to new places, visiting other countries. So that's great. I'm happy you took away some valuable information there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today's class. Thank you so much for watching, members. We had a lot of members absent today. We have at least 20, 30 members active. So I'm wondering where they all went. Naveen, the analysis should just be 1 paragraph. You don't need to separate it into 2. It's just 1 big paragraph that compares both maps together. Okay. Again, you don't need to separate the paragraph. You don't need to individually describe each map. All right. If you're doing a good job of comparing the 2 maps to each other, then you are simultaneously describing each map on its own. All right. So when I read this analysis, I not only can visualize the differences between the 2 towns, but I can also see what each town looks like during that time period. So that can all go into 1 paragraph. It makes sense that way. Good question. Okay, have a wonderful day, everyone. Tomorrow we're continuing with IELTS Writing Task 2 Strategy. Of course, everybody is welcome. Everybody can chat. This material, again, is coming from aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. So make sure to check us out on those websites, ladies and gents, for lots and lots of useful and powerful information for your next IELTS exam. Much love to all of you. Thanks, Naveen. Thank you, Jeffrey, for hanging in with today's class and having a really good back and forth dialogue. I hope both of you have a wicked, wicked rest of your day and wake up with lots of energy tomorrow. Bye for now.